The vast emptiness of deep space stretched before the human exploration vessel like an infinite black canvas. Captain J. Park stood on the bridge, his eyes fixed on the holographic display that flickered with incoming sensor data. Something was different today. The usual calm of space exploration felt charged with an unexpected tension. Hannah Kim, the navigation officer, adjusted her control panel, her fingers moving with practiced precision. Her eyes narrowed as strange energy signatures began to pulse across her screen. "Captain," she called out, her voice calm but sharp. "We're detecting unusual readings at the edge of our scanning range." Jay moved closer, studying the patterns. The readings were unlike anything in their database. Massive energy spikes, complex molecular structures that didn't match any known ship design, and a strange rhythmic pulse that seemed almost alive. Suddenly, the ship's external cameras captured something that made everyone on the bridge freeze. A massive structure emerged from the darkness of space, part organic, part mechanical, with a design that defied human understanding. It was enormous, easily dwarfing their exploration vessel by hundreds of times. The alien structure moved with a grace that seemed impossible for its size. Tendrils of metallic and biological matter shifted and pulsed, creating a living architecture that was both beautiful and terrifying. No standard communication protocols worked. No standard defense systems could even begin to comprehend its design. Hannah's hands moved quickly across her console. "Captain, our standard communication attempts are being completely ignored. Whatever this is, it doesn't recognize our existence as something worth communicating with." Jay understood immediately. They weren't just encountering a new species. They were facing something that viewed them as completely irrelevant. The alien structure continued its slow, deliberate movement, seemingly unaware or unconcerned about the human vessel in its path. "Evasive maneuvers," Jay commanded, his voice steady. "But don't show aggression. We're explorers, not warriors." Hannah's skills became evident as she manipulated the ship's controls. Their vessel moved with surprising agility, sliding between the massive energy fields that surrounded the alien structure. Each movement was calculated, each shift a delicate dance of survival. The alien structure began to pulse with increasing intensity. Waves of energy rippled around it, creating patterns that seemed to communicate something, though exactly what remained a mystery. It was as if the entire structure was a living, thinking entity, capable of thoughts beyond human comprehension. "We're collecting data," Hannah reported, her voice maintaining professional calm. "But I've never seen anything like this before. The molecular composition, the energy signatures. It's completely outside our current scientific understanding." AJK watched the holographic display, understanding they were witnessing something extraordinary. This wasn't just a first contact scenario. This was a moment that could change everything humans knew about the universe. The alien structure suddenly pulsed with a burst of energy that momentarily blinded the ship's sensors. When the visual systems recovered, it had moved, not in a predictable trajectory, but in a way that suggested intelligent, deliberate movement. "We're being observed," Jay whispered, more to himself than to the crew. As quickly as it appeared, the massive structure began to retreat into the darkness of space. No weapons were fired. No direct communication was attempted. It was as if the encounter was nothing more than a brief, curious inspection. Hannah's console began recording massive amounts of data. Every sensor, every recording device was capturing every possible detail of the encounter. They might have been ignored, but they weren't going to waste this opportunity. "Initial encounter logged," Hannah said, her fingers flying across the console. "Preparing comprehensive report for research, team." Jay nodded, his mind racing. This was more than a mission log. This was the beginning of something much larger, something that would challenge everything humans understood about their place in the universe. The ship's systems hummed with collected data, a silent witness to a moment that would soon change the course of human exploration forever. The research facility orbited a distant planet, its sterile white corridors filled with a nervous energy. Wu Choi stood before a massive holographic display, his fingers tracing the complex energy patterns captured during the first encounter. Days of continuous analysis had yielded something unexpected. "It's not just a ship," he muttered to himself. "It's a living system." Kiro Tanaka entered the room, carrying a stack of data tablets. Half human and possessing a unique perspective, on alien technologies he understood patterns that others missed. "The molecular structure suggests more than mechanical design," he said, dropping the tablets on the workstation. Captain J. Park watched from the corner, his eyes intense. The encounter had changed everything. What seemed like a random space exploration mission was now becoming humanity's most critical research project. Wu's fingers danced across the holographic interface. Strange patterns began to emerge. Communication, nodes that weren't traditional communication channels but something more organic. "Look," he said, pointing to a complex web of energy signatures. "These aren't just signals. They're more like neural networks." The team realized they were dealing with something beyond traditional technological understanding. The alien structure communicated like a living brain, with information flowing in patterns that defied conventional communication methods. Cairo brought up a comparative analysis. "Our current communication protocols are linear," he explained. "These aliens operate on a multidimensional communication system. It's like comparing a single line to a complex three-dimensional web." Captain Park understood the implications. Traditional warfare strategies would be useless. They needed a completely new approach. Hannah Kim entered the room, her navigation skills complementing the team's analytical approach. She had been studying the alien structure's movement patterns, looking for any hint of predictability. "Their navigation isn't about destination," she observed. "It's about continuous adaptation." The team worked tirelessly, breaking down every piece of data. They discovered that the alien structure could modify its molecular composition almost instantaneously. What seemed like a solid structure could become fluid, then return to a solid state in milliseconds. Wu developed the first breakthrough. "We can't fight them conventionally," he explained, "but we might be able to disrupt their communication networks." They designed a unique technological approach. Instead of trying to communicate or fight directly, they would create interference patterns that could potentially confuse the alien structure's communication systems. Kiro developed specialized quantum disruption algorithms. These weren't weapons in the traditional sense, but complex mathematical sequences designed to introduce chaos into the aliens' communication web. Captain Park reviewed the initial simulations. They were taking an entirely new approach to potential conflict, not as a direct confrontation but as a complex strategic puzzle. Days turned into weeks. The research facility became a hub of intense activity. Scientists from various disciplines collaborated, each bringing unique perspectives to understanding the alien technology. The team discovered something remarkable. The alien structure wasn't just a technological system. It was closer to a living organism. Its communication, movement, and adaptation were all interconnected in ways human technology had never conceived. "We're not preparing for a war," Wu explained during a briefing. "We're developing a language of disruption. We need to speak in their communication framework, not ours." Kiro developed specialized quantum interference devices. These weren't traditional weapons, but complex communication tools designed to introduce uncertainty into the aliens' perception systems. Captain Park understood the stakes. This wasn't just about protecting humanity. It was about understanding a completely different form of intelligence. The first test of their new approach would be critical. They weren't looking to destroy the alien structure, but to demonstrate that humans could think and adapt in ways the aliens might not expect. As the research continued, a sense of both excitement and uncertainty filled the facility. They were standing at the edge of a completely new understanding of communication, technology, and potentially intelligence itself. The team knew one thing for certain. Humanity was about to show that their greatest strength wasn't in firepower, but in the ability to understand, adapt, and innovate in ways no one could predict. The frontier combat zone stretched like a silent, dark canvas across multiple star systems. Captain J. Park stood on the bridge, watching holographic displays that showed something unprecedented was about to happen. Their strategy wasn't about traditional fighting. It was about understanding and disrupting the alien consciousness. Kiro Tanaka had developed a series of communication algorithms designed to introduce psychological uncertainty into the alien network. "We're not attacking," Jay explained to his team. "We're going to make them question their own existence." The first test would target the aliens' collective consciousness. Unlike human individual thinking, the alien structure operated like a massive, interconnected neural network. Every unit was connected, sharing information instantly across vast distances. Hannah Kim began implementing the first phase of their psychological disruption. She introduced subtle mathematical sequences into the communication channels, patterns that would seem normal at first, but would gradually create cognitive dissonance. The alien structures began to show strange behavioral changes. Where they once moved with perfect synchronization, small hesitations started appearing. Units began to slightly deviate from their standard movement patterns. Wu Choi monitored the signals. "We're creating doubt," he whispered. "Not through force, but through subtle information manipulation." The team had studied the alien communication extensively. They understood that these beings processed information differently. Their collective consciousness worked like a massive living computer, efficient but potentially vulnerable to strategic uncertainty. Kiro's algorithms started introducing contradictory information packets. These weren't obvious disruptions, but carefully crafted sequences that would slowly erode the aliens' confidence in their collective understanding. Imagine throwing small stones into a perfectly smooth pond. Initially, nothing seems to change, but gradually ripples begin to form, disrupting the surface's perfect reflection. The alien structures started showing signs of confusion. Their previously perfect formations began to fragment. Units that once moved in complete harmony now showed slight hesitations, microscopic moments of uncertainty. Captain J recognized this as their most significant weapon, the ability to make a seemingly invincible enemy question its own fundamental operating principles. Hannah continued sending complex mathematical sequences. These weren't attacks, but sophisticated psychological puzzles designed to challenge the aliens' understanding of reality. Each sequence was a carefully crafted intellectual trap. "We're speaking their language," Wu explained, "but we're introducing concepts they've never encountered. Uncertainty, doubt, individual variation." The alien structures began to slow down. Their previously rapid, synchronized movements became more cautious. It was like watching a perfect machine slowly develop individual consciousness. Cairo had designed the algorithms to target the collective's fundamental communication protocols. They weren't destroying the network, but introducing small, almost imperceptible variations that would gradually undermine its cohesion. Days turned into weeks. The psychological warfare continued. A silent battle fought through invisible information channels. No traditional weapons were used. No direct physical confrontation occurred. Captain J understood they were fighting a war on a level most military strategists would never comprehend. This was about challenging an entire species' understanding of collective consciousness. The alien structures started showing unprecedented behaviors. Some units began to separate from the main collective, displaying signs of what could only be described as individual curiosity. Their perfect synchronization was breaking down. Hannah continued her delicate manipulation of communication channels. Each signal was a potential psychological trigger, designed to introduce complexity into a previously simple system. Wu monitored the results, making constant adjustments. "We're not destroying them," he said. "We're helping them discover individual potential." The psychological warfare wasn't about defeat, it was about transformation. By introducing uncertainty, they were challenging the aliens to evolve, to understand something beyond their current collective existence. As weeks passed, the alien structures became less predictable. Their movements, once perfectly synchronized, now showed hints of individual variation. They were beginning to think differently. Captain J realized they were witnessing something extraordinary. Humanity wasn't just defending itself. They were potentially helping another species discover a new form of consciousness. The silent war continued, fought not with weapons, but with carefully crafted information, mathematical sequences, and a profound understanding of psychological complexity. The star system burned with an intense, silent light. Thousands of alien and human vessels created a complex dance of destruction and strategy. Captain J. Park watched the holographic display, understanding that everything they had prepared was about to be tested. Wu Choi's voice cut through the tension. "They're changing formation faster than our initial predictions," he reported, his fingers moving quickly across multiple sensor screens. The alien fleet looked like a living organism. Massive structures shifted and moved, connected by invisible energy threads. But something was different now. The perfect synchronization they had shown earlier was gone. Small hesitations, microscopic variations in movement, clear signs of their psychological disruption. Hannah Kim piloted their lead vessel with precision. Her understanding of the alien movement patterns had become almost intuitive. "They're not thinking as one anymore," she said quietly. "They're thinking as individuals." Kiro Tanaka monitored the communication channels. The quantum disruption algorithms they had developed were working perfectly. Where once the alien fleet moved with absolute precision, now there were gaps, moments of uncertainty. The battle wasn't about destroying the enemy. It was about proving a fundamental truth, that adaptability was the most powerful weapon in any conflict. Human vessels moved in patterns that defied traditional military strategy. They weren't trying to win through firepower, but through unpredictability. Each movement was a complex mathematical problem that the aliens couldn't immediately solve. Captain J understood the psychological warfare they had been conducting had created something unexpected. The alien fleet was no longer a perfect machine. It was becoming something else, something more complex, more vulnerable. Massive energy weapons fired across the star system. But the human strategy wasn't about direct confrontation. They were using the aliens' own communication network against them, introducing calculated disruptions that created massive tactical vulnerabilities. Wu's voice remained calm. "We're targeting their collective consciousness," he explained. "Each disruption is like a virus in their communication system." The alien structures began to fragment. Where they once moved as a single, perfect entity, now individual units started to make independent decisions. It was like watching a perfect machine slowly develop individual consciousness. Hannah's piloting became a work of art. She anticipated alien movements, creating complex escape routes that seemed to defy standard navigation principles. Each maneuver was a carefully calculated risk. Kiro continued to send sophisticated information packets. These weren't weapons in the traditional sense, but complex mathematical sequences designed to introduce maximum uncertainty into the alien fleet's communication systems. The battle wasn't happening in physical space alone. It was a war of information, of psychological complexity, of understanding how consciousness could be manipulated. Captain J watched as entire sections of the alien fleet began to break apart. Not through direct destruction, but through a carefully orchestrated psychological attack that challenged their fundamental understanding of collective existence. Hours passed. The star system became a canvas of complex energy patterns, weapon discharges, and strategic movements. But the humans weren't winning through traditional warfare. They were winning by fundamentally changing how the aliens understood themselves. Wu's final analysis was simple. "We didn't defeat them. We helped them discover individual potential." The alien fleet's perfect formation continued to break down. Units that once moved with absolute synchronization now showed signs of individual decision-making. It was like watching a massive, living computer slowly develop consciousness. Hannah's final maneuver was something that would be studied in military academies for generations. She didn't destroy the alien fleet. She fundamentally transformed how they understood themselves. As the battle concluded, it became clear this wasn't a traditional victory. This was something more profound. Humanity had shown that adaptability, psychological complexity, and the ability to introduce uncertainty were more powerful than any weapon. Captain J. Park looked at his team. They hadn't just fought a battle. They had changed the fundamental understanding of conflict, consciousness, and potential. The star system grew quiet, but the silence was different now. It was the silence of transformation, of a species discovering something entirely new about itself. The interstellar conference hall was silent. Representatives from hundreds of alien civilizations watched as Admiral J. Park stepped forward. He wasn't wearing a military uniform, but a simple diplomatic outfit that suggested something more profound had happened than a simple military victory. Kiro Tanaka stood beside him, representing a new kind of diplomatic approach. Their victory wasn't about conquest. It was about understanding. "We didn't destroy an enemy," Jay began, his voice calm and clear. "We helped a civilization understand its own potential." The holographic displays showed the transformation of the alien civilization. Where once they existed as a perfect, synchronized collective, now they showed signs of individual development. It was like watching a species discover consciousness for the first time. Wu Choi presented the technical details. Their psychological warfare hadn't been about destruction, but about introducing complexity. They had shown the aliens that individual thought could be a strength, not a weakness. Hannah Kim demonstrated the communication strategies they had developed. Complex algorithms that introduced uncertainty, mathematical sequences that challenged fundamental communication protocols. It was a new language of diplomacy. The alien representatives listened. Many of them had feared humans as another conquering species. But this was different. This was a demonstration of something more profound than military might. "We're not here to rule," Jay explained. "We're here to help species understand their own potential." The conference hall began to change. Representatives from different civilizations started discussing something unprecedented, not territorial disputes or resource conflicts, but the nature of consciousness itself. Kiro presented their research. They had discovered that many advanced civilizations were trapped by their own perfect systems. Synchronization and efficiency had become a form of limitation. Individual variation was the key to true development. Wu's analysis showed how their approach could be applied to multiple civilizations. It wasn't about forcing change, but about introducing the possibility of change. The diplomatic breakthrough was unlike anything in galactic history. Humans weren't conquering. They were offering a new way of understanding existence. Hannah demonstrated how their communication algorithms could help species break through their own limitations. It was a technology of potential, not destruction. Admiral J. Park understood the true meaning of their mission. They hadn't just won a battle. They had opened a new chapter in galactic understanding. Representatives from different star systems began to see something remarkable. The humans weren't presenting a strategy of conquest, but a philosophy of possibility. Wu explained how their psychological techniques could help civilizations overcome collective limitations. It was a new form of technological and social development that went beyond traditional understanding. Kiro showed how individual variation could become a strength. The alien civilizations watched, understanding that something fundamental had changed in their understanding of existence. The conference wasn't about surrender. It was about transformation. Hannah's communication strategies became a new framework for diplomatic interaction. Species that had been isolated for thousands of years began to see new possibilities. Admiral J. Park looked around the conference hall. They had done something unprecedented. They had shown that the most powerful weapon was understanding, not destruction. The holographic displays continued to show the transformed alien civilization. Units that once moved in perfect synchronization now showed individual development. It was like watching a species discover freedom for the first time. Wu presented the final analysis. Their approach could be applied to multiple challenges: social, technological, psychological. It was a new way of solving complex problems. Kiro demonstrated how their research could help species break through their own limitations. The conference hall was no longer just a diplomatic space. It had become a place of potential. Hannah's communication algorithms represented a new universal language, not of words, but of possibility. As the conference concluded, it became clear that something remarkable had happened. Humans hadn't conquered a civilization. They had helped a species discover its own potential. Admiral J. Park looked at his team. They had changed everything, not through force but through understanding.